Hey guys, it's Derek Z, physical therapist. In today's video, I'm going to show you 10 exercises to help you strengthen your core and help with low back pain. Core strength is one of those things that are beneficial for many aspects of your overall function. I actually use a lot of these exercises myself on my patients to help with their low back rehab, or just having them do it as a preventative measure to keep low back pain away. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first exercise is called a posterior pelvic tilt. To start this, you're in a hook lying position with your knees up like this. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your low back and you're actually gonna press down into the table. When you press down into the table, you're basically taking your pelvis and rotating it backwards, thus a posterior direction. That's why this is called posterior pelvic tilt. So when you do that, you're engaging your abdominals and you're also drawing your belly button towards your spine. You're breathing at the same time when you're doing this. This is the isometric exercise. I typically have people do this, hold it for about 10 seconds, perform for 10. So again, so you guys can see, to kind of repeat, you're taking your low back and you're pushing it into the table here. And then you relax. Pushing it into the table here. And then you relax. Okay, this is a posterior pelvic tilt. Exercise number 2 is a posterior pelvic tilt with knee extensions. So basically what this is you're doing the first exercise, which is the pelvic tilt, and then you're pushing down. The entire time you're pushing down, you're going to go ahead and slowly lift your leg, reach it out, tap the heel on the table, and then bring it back. And then you alternate. This entire time you're performing a posterior pelvic tilt. The whole idea behind this is you're engaging your core and you're using your legs to distract the core, thus challenging it. So that's one way to kind of work your core stability in this position. Just like that. This entire time you're keeping the posterior pelvic tilt. So you're making sure you're pushing your low back into the table, holding that as you're moving your legs. Next one is another posterior pelvic tilt variation, a little bit more difficult from the previous one. So with this, you're basically, again, performing your pelvic tilt, pushing your low back, keeping it flushed against the table, engaging your abdominals, drawing your belly button down towards your spine as you're doing this, okay? And then when you're doing this, holding this here, keeping it tight, you're gonna march with your legs as you're keeping your pelvic tilt and the back flushed against the table. Okay, so this is basically a pelvic tilt with marching. I typically have people do this in terms of 2 sets of 10 or 2 sets of 15. At the end of the day, it's whatever you can tolerate. The next progression up from the pelvic tilt with marching is a pelvic tilt with a full leg extension while the other knee is up. Okay, so with this next one, you start off same in this position. Perform your pelvic tilt, push your low back into the table, keep your low back flushed against the table, draw your belly button in towards your spine, hold that, keep it tight, bring both knees up, and now extend one leg, tap it on the table, extend the other leg, tap it on the table, and then you just perform reps while you're in this position. Now with that said, always keep in mind with these pelvic tilt exercises while you're moving your legs, you're really engaging your core and you're just using your legs to distract your core. If you're not engaging your core, like right now I'm relaxed. I don't know if you guys can see that, but if I'm just moving my legs and I'm relaxing my core, it doesn't really do what it's supposed to be doing. If you, on the other hand, engage your core, keep this nice and tight, bring this up, and then do your leg extensions, the exercise becomes a lot harder because now you're using your legs to challenge your core. And you can start with a set of 10 reps. You can start with that and then build yourself up from there. So the next exercise is called dead bug. This is basically involving the arms while you're doing the pelvic tilts with the alternating leg extensions. So the dead bug essentially looks like this. So you're starting off with one leg straight and the other arm straight over your head, and you're just bringing that over as you're bringing the other arm. So it's essentially a reciprocal pattern. So you can see the leg part is the same thing with the pelvic tilt. You're still keeping the pelvic tilt. You're still keeping your back flushed against the table, and you're just alternating your arms and your legs. You want to extend the knees all the way so you can tap it on the table, because that challenges the core the most. And when you're moving your arms back and forth like that, now you're challenging the upper portion of your core. So this is actually a really nice and challenging core exercise to do to kind of help you stabilize and get that good workout. So this exercise is called dead bug. These next couple exercises are a bridge variation. So now we're done with the pelvic tilt variations of each other. This next one is essentially a simple bridge. So you're again in this position on your back with both your knees bent, okay? I like the shoulders to align with the hips to align with the knees, and the knees to align with the ankle. So in other words, you shouldn't be way too far out, or your knees should not be way tucked in against each other. They should just be about shoulder width apart. When you're doing this, again, before you do this, you're just gonna go ahead and squeeze your glutes, okay? Keep them nice and tight, and then go ahead and come up from there. You don't wanna overextend. You wanna just come up to neutral, where your shoulders align with your hips and your hips align with your knees. And then you're gonna slowly bring it down. And you're gonna bring it up, and then you're gonna bring it down. So this is just one simple variation of the bridge. This is essentially the most simple variation of it. The next variation from the regular bridge is a figure 4 bridge, or a single leg bridge. There's multiple ways to do this. This is one way that I like to prescribe it. So you basically, it's a figure 4 version. So you take one leg and you put it on the other in like a figure 4 pattern. From there, this becomes a single leg bridge, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna push down and you're gonna bring your hips up from that position. You're gonna bring it down and you're gonna bring it back up. Now, a couple things to take note of when you're doing this exercise for maximum effort is when you're doing this, you're pushing your right leg down to bring your hip up. A lot of times when I see people do this, this left hip will drop. So what I want you to think about is when you're pushing yourself up, I want you to imagine there's like a plate of water here. And when you're bringing your hips up, the plate of water, if there's water here, it should spill towards you. It should not spill sideways out towards the left. It should spill towards you. This will ensure that you're having proper engagement of the glutes, and in that way, you're getting the best benefit out of this. So to perform this on the other side, just for demonstration purposes, same thing, keeping those hips nice and level when you're bringing them up and down like that. So this is the single leg bridge, or the figure 4 bridge. So the next exercise is a plank. There are two modifications to this: the regular long lever version and the short lever version. So I'll start with the short lever version first. So you're gonna start with on your stomach, and you don't want your elbows too far out, nor do you want them so tucked in close to your body. You want it so when your upper arm is down, it creates a straight line into the table. So the modified version is essentially you come up onto your knees and then you just hold it. So what you're really trying to create is a flat back. Okay, so I don't want your hips to drag, nor do I want your hips all the way up. You want to bring it down to about right there where your back is nice and flat. Okay, so this is the modified version. I typically have people start about 20 seconds and then build their way up. Okay, do what you can tolerate. The longer you can hold it, the more benefits you can get from it. But if you're holding it for more than a minute or so, it's time to progress. So the progression is essentially the long lever plank. Pretty straightforward. From these, get onto your toes. From here, the position of the arms are exactly the same. You basically are doing the same thing as the short lever plank, trying to create a flat back. If you're able to put a plate on your back and keep it nice and still, then you're doing the form correctly. I don't want to see this where your hips are all the way up, nor do I want your hips to drag. That's actually not great for your low back. So you want to keep it there. You can't do a regular plank without including the side plank to make it a complete plank series. So a side plank, you're on your side, okay? I'll start with the modified version first, just like how it is with the plank. You start with a short lever, so you start with the knees, And from here, you want to make sure, this is the same thing here. You want to make sure your knees are aligned with your hips are aligned with your shoulders. A lot of times I see people do this. They bring their hips forward and they come up. You don't get the best benefit, or the max benefit, I should say, from this exercise. You get the most benefit from if your hips are extended and they're in line. From your shoulder to your knee should be one straight line. From there, you want to bring yourself up and you're just holding this here. Very similar to the plank. You can start with 20 seconds and then build yourself up from there. Again, if you're holding this for longer than a minute, it's time to progress. There's no need to waste time. So what you're gonna do, long lever, very similar, same thing as a plank. You come up and you're just holding that there. If the alignment here is the same, ankle in line with your knee in line with your hip in line with your shoulder. One straight line. The position of the upper arm is the same. You want it straight down. You don't want it out here too far, nor do you want it so close to your body. This just puts a lot of pressure on the shoulders. You want optimal alignment, especially when you're putting a lot of pressure on the shoulder. If you're doing that way the pressure is distributed properly over the shoulder. And then again, you're holding this, build yourself up, start with 20 seconds, and then build yourself up from there. And of course, when you're doing the side plank, you're doing this on both sides as well. So the last exercise is called bird dog. So with a bird dog, you're essentially getting into position on all fours here, okay? You wanna be in good position, meaning the arms are nice and straight down. Same thing with the thighs, straight down. The arms and the thighs should match a similar angle. So they should both be straight, essentially, okay? So when you're doing this, you kick one leg out and then the opposite arm goes up, okay? So when you're doing this, it's an isometric exercise. You're holding this, 10-second holds to start with, and then you switch. Opposite arm, opposite leg. 10-second hold to start with, and then you switch. And then you just alternate. I typically have people do this for 10 reps, couple sets, and it depends on what they can tolerate. Give that a try, let me know how it goes. Do you have a favorite core exercise that you like to share? If so, please share it in the comment section below and let us all know. Let me know what you guys think of these exercises. I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care.